Hey guys. Fuck. Okay, we're gonna have to restart that.
This is nah. I'm keeping that in there because this will be the third time. It's either the third or the fourth time. I can't remember if we did it in that episode 0 thing, but that is the third time in a row that we've been like, all right, let's do this.
Uh, this is the second time we. It's the second time I've done it like this. Um. Oh, now you're making me think. Hold up.
Ah,
Um. Anyways. Hey guys. Welcome to Under the Lantern, and thank you all for joining us here under the lantern. My name is Asher,
and I am Clay.
and we're
Really?
just gonna jump into it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm actually funny enough. I know you didn't hear it. Well, no, I. Man, this is all full of things. I went to go mute our call to open my beer, and I muted the call, but I didn't mute the recording. If that tells you the type of day that I'm having, they like
Oh man, I've had a hell of a week.
shit.
Man. But yeah. Anyways, guess we'll kind of just get kind of started, I guess. I think one topic I know, like we talked about this little, not even that long ago, but one topic that I wanted to kind of bring out there, you know, because we don't steer from controversial topics. Um, One topic I wanted to kind of bring out there is is racism.
I love
Now,
the just deadpan. Drop it in there.
yeah, well, okay, so now I'm obviously Indian, so me being part of the minority, um, I feel like hopefully alleviates some of those people that are like, oh no, from like clicking away or whatever. But if you want to click away, fine, cool. You do you. You have the right to do whatever you want. But anyways, now obviously the history of the world, there has been quite a lot of racism that has happened in the past, right? And I mean, you go to any history class, that is one of the things that you learn a lot of is, you know, whether it's from slavery to segregation, it's just constant. It's just a constant ongoing topic, right? Even now, it's being talked about a lot. Um, but now I'm gonna say this, and I feel like again a lot of people may get triggered or whatever. I mean, if you have a difference in opinion, let us know in the comments. That obviously respectfully, and I'm saying this in a respectful manner too. But racism, now there is some forms of racism that do still exist, and they are from extreme people that have certain extreme opinions. But the true reason that racism exists is because it's constantly being talked about and conversed. And I know that sounds kind of ironic because we're kind of discussing the topic of racism, but it's something that I think a lot of people need to kind of realize is racism in reality nowadays doesn't really truly exist fully. Now, obviously there are some extreme cases, and again, those cases are from people that have extreme opinions about it. But the more you talk about something, right, the more you think about it, the more you start talking more frequently about it, and the more it spreads, right? Like for example, if you hear a rumor about somebody, right, you're gonna think about it for a little while, then you're gonna tell somebody about it, and then that person will tell 10 other people about it, and then those people will tell other people. It's kind of like a widespread, I guess, pandemic. It's something that spreads even if it's not true. And not to say that racism isn't true, it has happened in our history, but the only reason it's really prevalent now is because of the fact that it gets brought up every single time something happens.
As a part that I want to add to it, I know we'll have several topics, especially us growing up, because I can say, just honestly from my perspective, it's not common that we had our situation. I mean, growing up, southern United States, middle of nowhere town. I mean, it was weird. When you think about it, most of my friends weren't white. I mean, I had you, I had our other friend, I don't even know a pseudonym for him, but you know who I'm talking about. Subaru guy. That's what I'm gonna say. And like the guys that I hung out with on a normal basis, none of them were white. And so, kind of the
I
first.
wouldn't say that necessarily, but
No, I mean, honestly, the only one that I can think, his name's common enough that and I'll throw it out there, but the only one that I can really think of, I guess there's two that I can think of outside of school that I would talk to in passing, that I was actually going and spending time with, choosing to spend time with them, was Luke and Tristan. Otherwise, it was you, or it was Subaru guy, or like I had a couple friends that I was in robotics clubs with, and I mean, they were all Asian because we were traveling to bigger city centers for it. And I mean, when you get into that setting, it's more diverse in the town we grew up in, so it was more common there. But I can honestly say I never thought about it, because that was the question that I was kind of leading to, was did you ever think about it? I can honestly say, hanging out with you, I mean, there was the obvious difference. There was obviously a culture difference between us. I mean, when I came over to your house and I had dinner with you, it was food that I didn't eat on a regular basis. Or when I was there for different, like, important moments for you or your faith or your culture, it was very obvious, like, I'm not, this isn't what I grew up in. But I never truly was like, just sitting there randomly, you and me talking, and like, oh man, he's Indian. That's not me.
I mean, for me, I guess I never really had the thought of it at all because first and foremost, I am the minority in the situation. So for me, regardless of any scenario or circumstance, it always was in the lieu that I am different from certain other people. So I never had that thought just because it was my reality. So for me, it's not really that uncommon, right? Like for example, like somebody like you, right? If you are going with somebody else that's from a different culture, different country, different ethnic background, it would be different for you because and I'm not saying this specifically as you, but like
No,
anybody
no,
that
no.
had surrounded themselves with, people that have similar faith, people that have similar backgrounds, beliefs, things like that. For them, it would be a lot more weird, or I guess for them, they would think about it a lot more so just because it's something that they never had happen to them, right? Versus me, it's been a thing since I was pretty much born, right? And so that for me, it's like it's never been a thought in my mind because that's my reality. But for somebody else, it just it's different because you go from one norm of just everybody that you see, they look like you, they act like you, they talk like you, they do things just like you, and then after a while, you get introduced to somebody else that has an entirely different way of living, and that's just how it is. And I'd say like going back to the whole friends and stuff like that. Like for me, it was a little opposite for of the longest time. Like I knew some of the similar people that you did, but for me, because I was obviously I was the only Indian in the entire school, and so for me it was a bit odd because I knew I was, or I guess it wasn't odd. It was just like I kind of fell into place in an odd way
You
because I
were
knew I
you were
wasn't the
aware.
same. Yeah, yeah. I was aware, but at the end of the day, like for me, I didn't really put much thought to it because at the end of the day, like it's a everyday thing for me. Like it doesn't really matter. Now, um,
Well, and that's what I
obviously,
think. I think that was the point of like the question that I was trying to get to was like, I mean, like you're saying, that kind of flip side of the coin. Everything I did outside of like I guess pretty much our friendship was white. I mean, my church was white. My family, of course, is white. I most of the groups that my family hung out with, that you call your family friends, they were all white. But I never can say that anytime I hung out with you, I was like, oh, that's white, that's white, that's white, that's white, and then here's Indian. I was aware of the cultural difference. I was aware that you weren't white like me, but I can't say I ever sat down and I just went, he's not white. I was sitting next to you and I was like, that's my brother. Like I would go to the ends of the earth for this dude. Like I never had that conscious thought of the difference of race other than the obvious because I can see you. There was never a mental difference to me between you or any of my white friends or white family members or white church members.
yeah, and like now, being that I was an Indian, but also there was the only Indian in the entire school. For me, it was I guess I had a bit more of a different experience at certain given points compared to you because most everybody around me was the same as everybody else, excluding me. And so, typical, I guess, differences kind of caused, different act reactions. And so for me, like, I would have individuals that would come up and like, say hi or whatever, be friendly. And then I would have those people that would be like more of like a quote unquote bully figure for me. And so, for me, it was, you know, I had people saying things that would be considered racist, but at the end of the day, I'm not a kind of person that takes things to heart, and that's the most important thing that, in my opinion, in this, especially this conversation, that needs to be pointed out is being racist and just saying something to, just make a joke or something like that is totally different,
Yeah,
right?
just being derogatory.
Like a lot of people want to take something that somebody else says and flip it completely out of context and throw it into the racist category. But the reality of it is 99% of the time, it's not really that person's intent to be racist. They're just trying to make a humorous joke out of it to appeal to the other person, right? Like, for example, for me, even now, like it happens to me a lot where, I'll be working or I'll be out somewhere and the people that I interact with, they'll come up to me and they'll, ask me questions or things like that, and then sometimes they'll just say like a random joke, and it's not like, oh, it's not a joke that most people would necessarily catch, but sometimes it is, and then sometimes people will be like, it's jokes that people may consider to be racist. But for me, I've dealt with it my whole life to where I don't really consider what people say a lot of times as a racist comment. Now, again, it also depends on the way they say it, but again, 99% of the time, it's not being said in a racist form. It's just being said in a way to kind of appeal to you because the person doesn't know how to communicate the differences properly, right? And that's in my opinion, that's completely okay because at the end of the day, like how would you expect somebody that knows nothing about you, nothing about your background, nothing about your culture to approach you and then have a conversation about your background or about your culture unknowingly, right? they may have heard things in passing, but if they can't confirm if that's real or not, how else are they going to walk up to you and just be like, "Hey, who are you? What are you? Like what's going on?" You know? And so for me it's like racism isn't really truly an actual it's a thing, but it's not as severe as people make it out to be, right?
I was about to say
In our
you're.
current culture, like in our current culture, in our current society, people like to take something and interpret it the way they want to interpret it and then push that narrative out to everybody else. And in reality, that narrative may not even be correct, but that's just what people hear, and that's what people try and push because they think their opinion is a fact. And that's what spins off things like cancel culture because people hear one thing, they fixate on it, and then they say, "Oh, this isn't right," and then they throw it to other people in a negative way to influence them to then hop on to the train of this person should not be doing this. When in reality, it's more like, oh, it's just a fun joke or something to kind of break the ice so that you can have a conversation with somebody and actually understand and learn something out of it.
I, so, in just kind of clarifying what you're saying, you're separating the derogatory from the systematic, saying that you're separating out people making offhanded comments, poor taste jokes, things like that, and truly something that hurts or hinders you.
Yes. That
Okay.
that because again, like 99% of the time people do not go into a conversation with the intent to be racist or say something that's against you or anything like that. So again, the biggest I guess the biggest challenge right now when it comes to racism is the fact that it's just people are talking about it to the point where it is a lot worse than it needs to be, you know? Like, for example, slavery was abolished how many years, decades, a couple centuries ago?
I'm looking it up right now.
And yeah, and then segregation was eliminated again years ago, right?
I'm about
So,
to say 1865, so you're talking about 140 years ago?
so, you know, why then
160.
continue to live yeah, so why then continue to live in the past and drag out something that's negative when you can live in the present and focus on the positives, right? And I don't know if you've known this, but I'm gonna say this because again, I'm a part of a minority here. Minorities are a lot more racist when you think about it, right? Um, for example,
I was
right?
about to say, like,
I'm an Indian.
before you get into your example, I mean, just to the context from my side, I wouldn't have said that until you said it and kind of laid it out for me. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the week. Of, yeah, I mean, growing up in the South, I saw it all the time. Somebody being racist or making racist remarks or things like that. I would have said it would have been more on like the majority of the country, the white side. But then you laid it out because I mean, I still remember people making comments to you in school and being like, man, that's not funny. And you were always brushing it off. You were like, I deal with it, it's whatever. But I mean, it was one of those I can remember having those thoughts and being like, huh. Once you laid it out, having that aha moment of like, okay, I guess when you lay it out like that, it's not just the one side. And then when you start giving me examples, I was like, okay, maybe it is more.
Well, again, like so. my example, right? And then this honestly, this example applies to any and all minority groups, right? If you look at Indians and Hispanics for an example, now obviously the intent is again humor, but and this has been said by so many people, so it's already out there. But Indians in specific are they tend to you know talk more in a racial stance, and it's like it makes you think like, is that guy actually racist? But in reality, that's just how we speak about people. Like we're more like joking about it, but at the end of the day, that's just how that's just how different cultures talk. Same thing with Hispanics, right? I'm very confident if anybody could speak like Spanish, and you get into like a conversation of like when two Hispanics are talking to each other in Spanish, and you're there and then you understand Spanish, you could probably tell, yeah, these guys sound racist. But in reality, that's just how we converse to each other to differentiate other people in a conversation, right? Like if I'm talking about, and this is actually a very distinct way for, at least in my perspective, in my experience, for us to distinguish the type of person and the kind of person you're talking about, right? Is by saying, "Oh, I have this friend, he's a white guy." Snap finger, immediately knows exactly the kind of person. And that is purely because stereotypes aren't really stereotypes if you think about it. It's legitimately how people act.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, you shouldn't judge everybody by a stereotype. I've said it before. You don't judge by a stereotype, but a stereotype exists because on some level there's a little bit of truth to it.
Well, a stereotype exists because a majority of that specific group that classifies in that stereotype acts exactly as the stereotype is defined. That's why stereotypes exist. And I will agree with you on you shouldn't necessarily, just come to a conclusion based off of a stereotype. But at the end of the day, that's exactly why it's a stereotype, is because that is classified as a majority rule. That is exactly how a majority of a specific group of people acts and behaves on a consistent basis. So if a stereotype exists, it's because that stereotype is legitimate, right? For example, the biggest stereotype that a lot of people have about Indian American people is that either when they grow up, their profession is a doctor, an engineer, or computer science. But
No,
if you break down the statistics, those three are the primary build and construct of Indian people. Now, obviously, there's business in that. I didn't actually mean to leave that out. But again, those four are the primary constructs of the profession that Indians go into. And again, I looked at statistics, or I didn't look at statistics. I heard different statistics about, like, the different groups, like ethnic groups in different fields and things. And a huge portion of business owners in the US are Indians, right? You see whenever you go to a doctor's office, who do you see? You see an Indian doctor, right? You biggest example. Something happens with your computer, you call up tech support. A huge portion of the time, you're probably going to get an Indian person, right? So it's the reason why stereotypes exist is because it is statistically proven that that stereotype is the way that that specific group of individuals behaves.
no, and that's what I mean. I can't say that I haven't run into that because you get the same thing on the Asian side too. Of like, most of my doctors are Asian. Most of my doctors are female too, but we can get into the sex split at some other point. Uh, now you see that with, and honestly, I think it's for the better because a lot of it comes down again to that culture side of it. We say it's a stereotype, and you don't want to just lump everyone into a stereotype, but typically Asian families, I mean, Indian would be included in that, Asian families value more education, value a higher purpose, where, I mean, I was told I could be anything. I was told at a young age, be the trash guy, because the trash guy, that's what you want to do, just be happy with what you do. But then you have
Yeah.
a culture that strives for excellence, and you have that kind of push. And I know a lot of that can come down to some of that systematic racism that did face minorities 160, 180, 200 years ago. On, well, the world's not going to give it to you, so go get it, and it never went away. That's fantastic on that side of it. But, I mean, it, like you said, it falls into that stereotype, and you don't always want to fall into it, but statistically, I mean, even in my world, I mean, Asian makes up what? 5% of the United States population? It's another one I'm going to go
I think
look
a
up.
lot more now. I think it's quite a bit more now. But
7%.
and then yeah, and then another thing that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit was when it comes to race, obviously the first thing that you think about is slavery. And again, slavery and segregation was a completely abhorred
I
and
was supposed to say
extremely
awful.
horrible thing. You know, to even have the thought of owning another human being as property is completely diabolical, and it shouldn't have ever happened. But people, whenever they think of slavery, they think of, oh, black slaves in the U.S. being owned by white American people. Slavery also existed in Africa. It was flipped. It was black slave owners owning white slaves.
Well,
So
and
if
to
you're going to
add,
throw up an argument of that where it's, oh, slavery this, slavery that, my ancestors all this and all that, black slaves, this, that, why don't you bring out the argument of African American black slave owners owning white slaves? Hell, even in the United States, even in the US, there were slave owners that were black.
well, and that's what I was about to add. Like, even to that point, we have all these conversations and we push so hard on that slavery narrative. And again, I don't want to take away from that. Same thing you said, and adding to it of slavery was an awful, awful thing that we should leave in the past. But in leaving it in the past, we also need to recognize that today there are more slaves than there were at any other point in history. We abolished it here in 1865, but the rest of the world, there's 50 million slaves around the world today. So if we're saying it was that bad and that we're continuing to hit on it today, rather than making everyone feel awful for the sins of the father, let's go after the sons today that continue to do it. I mean,
And I've been seeing a lot of videos circulate. Like this isn't recent. This is like a few years back, right? During the whole Black Lives Matter movement and everything like that. I saw a lot of, black African American individuals that were like, "Oh, we want reparations for slavery." My contest to that is that, okay, again, slavery was completely unnecessary. It is awful. It is something that should not ever happen to any human being ever, right? That's a baseline. There's no argument about that. There's no exceptions to that. But is it right for somebody, like for example, for you or for me, who in this current day and age do not own or condone slavery by any means to pay another individual that is not a slave, that was born and raised in a home by their own family, going through an education system, being raised and nurtured the way that the family raised and nurtures you, to then receive funds for something that happened to your ancestors years ago? That is not how you fix the problem. You don't fix the problem by giving somebody, by requesting somebody that had nothing to do with it money, then giving that money to somebody that has nothing done wrong to them. You know what I mean? Like it's not. That's not how you. That's not how you solve the problem. You solve the problem by moving forward. You solve the problem by realizing and acknowledging that, hey, in our US history, there has been a lot of bad. But we are living in a current present where we have the ability to say, look, I don't care what you look like. You are a human being, same as me. You have the same exact rights that I do to live, to breathe, to eat, to, work, to do whatever it is that you want to do. At the end of the day, I respect the fact that you're doing your best with the hands that you're given. You're respecting me in the same exact way. Let's come as a collective and move forward and progress in society to improve all of it as a whole, rather than sitting in the past and regressing and completely dissolving the unity that we need to have as a community.
Exactly. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's the same thing that you're saying. It's the sins of the past. We're at a point now that it's not too long ago that it was here, but it's long enough that our dads didn't own slaves, couldn't own slaves. So we're on a third generation removed when you look at that age difference there. How would our age group be affected? I understand there is racism. I'm not saying there aren't still systems locally in place today. But there's nothing on a national scale that says even you and me, taking it away from the black population of it, there's nothing that I can do that you can't do just because I'm white and you're not. Goes for everyone. So why does it then fall to my responsibility to pay reparations to someone that is unaffected, that even has a better step than me on a lot of those things? I hate going down that path because I don't like living in that, but it's a point to be made. It's more difficult for me as a white Christian male to get some of these opportunities where affirmative action has created a space specifically for everyone that is not white that wants something to get it. It was a conversation I had with a friend when I was in college, and me and him were going back and forth talking about it, and he was like, yeah, I'm glad I had affirmative action to get in here. And I was like, man, isn't that more racist than anything else, that you only got this because you're black? He was black. It's like, you only got this because you're black. It's what you're saying. It's not saying that you didn't have the test scores to get here. It's not saying that you didn't have the aptitude to be here. But you're attributing everything to the fact that you're black is why you're here. And so at the end of the day, you don't know if it was your test scores. You don't know if it was what you did. You don't know if it was your accomplishments. But what you do know is that you were black helped you.
And I want to point something out, right? Like, we have a lot of DEI, right? DEI is going around everywhere, every aspect of our society right now. Now, I am all for, obviously, diversity and inclusion, right?
Yeah.
Being diverse myself. If you are a part of a minority, you deserve to have the same opportunities as anybody and everybody else. But there is a fine line when it is about diversity versus qualifications, right? If somebody is
Mm-hmm.
qualified for a job, they should get the job. If somebody's not qualified for the job, they shouldn't get the job. Just because you don't have enough diverse individuals in your company does not mean you can hire anybody because they are diverse. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that that is exactly what is happening,
That's
but
exactly what was happening. There were quotas. I mean, I, the,
and what
my current
I
employer
like
got in trouble for it. They had specific numbers that they had to hit, but like within a year before I was hired. Of okay, we've got these applicants, but we need to make sure that if we accept 100 people, that at least I think it was 50%. 50% could be whatever they wanted, but at least 50% had to be from some minority group, either female, a person of color, of part of the LGBT group. It had to be some category like that so they could fit that on paper and say they were a diverse company rather than the best company.
well, another thing too is right. So a lot of people are, going online, and this has been a back and forth argument for a little while now. Um, but people take things and twist them, right? So with the whole DEI thing, people are like, people say that, oh, so whenever somebody brings up the argument, they're saying that, oh, you're saying that this person isn't qualified, that they got hired because they're not, even though they're not qualified just purely because of race. That is not at all what that argument entails, right? Yeah, okay, this person of, minority, sure, they went through the processes of, they went through school, they got their certifications, they got their degrees, whatever it is, right? Now, take two individuals, right? One minority, one not. Minority passed, got their degree, but they passed at the lower end of the spectrum, right? Somebody who got C's in all of his classes, somebody who
C's
passed with
get degrees.
the bare minimums to get a degree and to pass, right? Now, somebody that's not the minority got top tier grades, top tier everything, right? Blindsided as just an employer, you're looking at nothing but just resumes. Two resumes, you don't know anything about the person, you just know that one side has this as their resume, as their experiences. One side has this as their resume and experience. Who are you more likely to choose? As a corporate company, you're going to choose the person that looks more qualified, that has the good grades, that has the knowledge, that has the basis, that has the experience that you're looking for. Not somebody that may have some of it, but may not have some of it, may have a okay education, but not a like not up to the, the standards that you want. Now, take those individuals and put the face to them. One being the minority, one being the majority, right? If in that situation you see one is very qualified, one is okay, so is qualified but barely, and you decide to choose the barely qualified over the very qualified, and for example, something were to happen where something goes wrong, a mistake is made, right? You're the only one to blame because you chose somebody that wasn't fully qualified over somebody that was overqualified to some degree
Mm-hmm.
for the position. Because at the end of the day, all you were looking at was the diversity. All you were doing was trying to meet this quote unquote quota. And so you decided to settle with somebody that may not have been as qualified as somebody else, sacrificing that integrity and that quality of, the service that you provide, whatever that may be, so that you can appeal to a certain demographic over another. And That's the argument that all these people are making is not about race. It's about qualification. It's about if you are capable of not only doing the job, but doing it in an excelled manner, doing it in a way that brings the company standards to a higher level versus somebody that may be qualified, may not be, but they keep the standard the same or potentially lower it, but you're only trying to appeal to a specific group, a specific audience, right? So that's the argument against DEI. DEI, again, it's important to have diversity, but is it so important that you sacrifice the quality?
Well, and that's what, kind of taking a step back on that too. I can remember the one Discord group we were in that had all the political debates. I can remember someone getting so mad at both you and me because she was like, "Oh, well, I can't believe you guys don't want a room where everyone gets a seat, but like it's you have to make sure you have this person, this person, this person." And they wouldn't listen to me because I was the white guy. And I remember you stepping in, you were like, "Well, hold on. I don't care who's sitting at the table because if you're talking about 20 people, it doesn't have to be 20 different people, all of different skin colors, all different backgrounds. I don't care if that room's completely white if those are the 20 best people to make the decisions for me." And
And again,
it comes back to that where, just kind of the final point on it, it sounds like you agree with me that I would almost be for a pure meritocracy of, instead of having to meet quotas and all of these things, it is truly just the best of the best are the ones that get it. That if you are the one with the most experience, the one with the best background for a position, and that's why I take a step back on that of the most experience, because it's not always that, but that on paper you are the best fit for what you're going for, school, a job, anything. The best on the paper should be the one to get it, because they're the one that's going to produce the best outcome.
at the end of the day, in my honest opinion, your status, your job should purely be determined based off of your merit. If you add value to your job, if you add value to anything, that is your merit. That is your value. Your value is not the skin color that you have. Your value is not the background that you come from. Your value is what you can offer and how you can excel upon that to improve whatever job environment you're going into. And if that's something that people are, if the quality and qualifications are something that people are willing to sacrifice for skin color, then we are, in my opinion, regressing as a society, because that's the exact thing that Martin Luther King Jr. fought for, was to get rid of this ideology of a skin color and purely open up the doors based off of somebody's merit.
Yeah, because I was looking up to the "I Have a Dream" speech. I can remember listening to that as a kid and being like, okay, I get it. I get what he was walking for, because, everyone experiences it. As a kid, you're kind of naive. You face different things at different points where you have to mature at a certain level, but to some degree, kids are naive. And I think that's where it comes back to my original question to you, is if you ever realized, just randomly sitting there, that we weren't the same, or if it was just, we're homies, we're brothers at the end of the day. But it comes down to that same "I Have a Dream" speech, and I'm trying to find the part where I had that, aha moment. Where is this thing? I'm trying to search everywhere, and they don't make it easy. There's a part in it. in lieu of being able to find it, there's a part in it where he says, I have a dream that one day a black kid will be able to stand with a white kid and still be able to play and enjoy time together as if there was no difference. And that's what it should have ultimately come down to, that outside of any other situation that we face, out of any moment where we make poor taste humor, you truly hate somebody and you're trying to hurt their feelings, different things like that, it ultimately comes down to a point of, can we not take that and say, you are my brother, you are my sister, we're both on this rock that floats around a burning ball of gas millions of miles away from here. We're just trying to live, eat, and be comfortable. Can we not do that together despite our differences because we're more similar than we are different?
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, this again, it's all coming down to the base fact that racism is as prominent as it is right now purely because of how often it is being spoken about. Purely because of how often people bring it up and just conclude to it, is because of why people, whenever you go out, whenever you do anything, one thing leading to another immediately goes into race, is because it's constantly being pushed out there. If we were to stop talking about the skin color, if we were to stop talking about people's backgrounds and just recognize each other as one of the same, that's all it is. At the end of the day, if we all recognize that, hey, you are me, you are the exact same entity that I am, you're the same type of entity that I am, you live, you breathe, you work, you eat, you sleep exactly the same as I do, then a lot of our problems would easily be resolved. But if we can't move past this ideology of skin color, then it's just going to make it worse for all of us, because at the end of the day, we're not going to see each other as equals. If people can't push past this concept of race, if people can't push past the idea that no matter who you are or where you come from, you're the same as everybody else, if people can't come to that conclusion, then as a society, we are regressing. We are not improving, we are not progressing. And every single individual that fought for equality, for freedom, for liberation, we're basically just letting every single individual down, because we are causing the problems that we all continue to complain about.
Yeah, and just to add, I did end up finding that in his speech. It's closer to the end of his speech. Just adding to it, because it adds to what you just said, too. It's 3 paragraphs when he starts getting into the I have a dream, I guess, almost psalm. Like, it's almost poetic in the way that he lays it out, but it starts with, I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners would be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. So adding to what you were saying, it's got to come down to a point where we set aside that difference that we look at ourselves and put on there and say, I mean, practically what we did. I know, at least from my end, I never looked at you and I went, well, you're Indian, so we got to do this. I was like, no, at the end of the day, I'm a kid, you're a kid. I like video games, you like video games. There's snow on the hill behind your house. Let's go roll down it until we're freezing. Because you and me are brother. And I know at the end of the day, you look at me as a brother, I look at you as a brother. Let's just go have fun. Let's set aside those differences and sit down at a table together and share what we have in common. And truly be a greater character than what came before us.
And that part where he's like, not judging about the color of the skin, but judging about the character of the person. That is the exact thing that we all need to understand is by waltzing around on the street saying, oh, this, that, reparations, this, and all this extra crap that people constantly bring. That is the that not only brings in racism, but that defines your character. That defines your character in the construct of racism. Because at the end of the day, if you're waltzing around and talking about race, that means that in your characteral construct, race is a huge part of it, right? Like you don't look at individuals because of who they are. You look at individuals because of what they are.
Yeah, no, and that's honestly what it falls to of I mean, taking it back to I know it's kind of the buzzword, but I don't know another word for it. Identity politics at the end of the day. We like to talk about the racism that exists in the world and the racism that other people push on other people, but I see that as also a form of almost self-racism that you see it more kind of in the BLM black community of, well, I'm black, so I have to fall into this, and I have to do this route because it's just who I am, and I have to follow this track, this belief, this understanding, rather than, like like in the speech, and like you just said, falling back to the content of your character, the content of who you are, rather than I have to be this because I am black, or I have to be this because I am white or Indian, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be one community, or it isn't one community. We all need to recognize it. Of, I need to be a better man, I need to be a better woman, I need to be a better brother or sister or friend, mother, father, because the content of who I am is what will be judged by those that see my content and my character. Being better as human beings, not as a black or white or Indian, red, blue, yellow, whatever. That at the base of who we are, we need to be better.
Yeah. I think this episode is slightly shorter than the other ones, but um, you know, I know at least for me, that was a topic that I kind of wanted to bring out a little bit because at the end of the day, it's still a prominent issue, and it's sad to say that it's a prominent issue, but it is, right? We've come years and years from where we were, and yet still battling something that should be left in the past, and it's hard to it's hard to push past it when it's constantly being brought up. And so for anybody out there that's facing these kinds of issues, um you know t- leave us a comment, talk to us about something that you kind of face on a regular basis, whether it be judgment, um or even racism or anything like that. Right, just leave that in the comments, and hopefully at some point soon in the near future we can all kind of push past this concept of race and racism and come into a new era of understanding people based off of their character and their merit, because again, that is what as a in our society as a whole is what we need to improve and to progress, is instead of looking at the face value, instead of looking at the skin color and backgrounds of who we interact with, look at what that person is about, what their beliefs are, how they are as a human being. Because at the end of the day, that's who we all are, is human beings. We live on the same planet, we breathe the same air, we eat the same food, we sleep, we walk, we talk, we laugh, we cry, we enjoy things, all the same, regardless of who you are, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your background, regardless of your beliefs. That's the main construct of us as human beings. So, breaking past these boundaries and these, restraints of racism is what will help us as a society to progress into the future and to improve upon the many different hardships and challenges that we all constantly face on a regular basis. So, for anybody out there that, you know, may be struggling with this, or if you just want to give us your opinion and your views on, this kind of a topic, just shoot us or write us a comment on down below this video, and let us know how you feel about it and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I know we've said it too, even if you disagree with us, let's keep it respectful, let's keep it tasteful. But if you disagree, please let us know that too. I mean, we would want to talk. That's the whole purpose of this, is that, everyone, I feel like everyone gets silent, especially around topics like this. You open it saying, hey, we're not afraid to talk about the controversial. You can't get any growth or any distance from a binding topic if you're afraid to talk about the difficult pieces too. So even if you disagree with us, respectfully, please, write that down there too. Let us know that you disagree. I mean, we haven't gotten one yet, but the moment somebody comments, that is going to be the first thing we talk about in the next episode.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like, yes, when it comes down to controversial topics, people try and avoid them. But, an example that I kind of often come around to, right, is if you're in a workplace and you have the ability to speak up about something, right? For example, it's a project, and whoever is in charge of the project has a specific way of doing things, but that way is proven to not work, and you have a way that has been proven to work. That project won't succeed unless if you provide your voice and your guidance to these individuals, regardless of who they are or any of that, right? Everybody's voice is valuable. Everybody's ideas are valuable. Everybody's input is valuable. So regardless if it's different, regardless if you may feel afraid or you may not want to, express your opinions, but at the end of the day, if we are not able to express our opinions, if we're not able to express our ideas, then we're basically just living in the shadows of somebody else, right? We're basically just kind of following the flow, knowing that it may or may not lead us to, a wrong path. So, for, again, anybody that has any sort of comments, let us know your opinions. If you disagree, again, respectfully, write us something about it. But just, write something down. If you just feel like, it doesn't even have to be about this topic. It can be about something else. Anything you guys want to hear us talk about, even, let us know any suggestions in the comments, and we'll be sure to review them and discuss it in the next episodes.
Yeah, and that's what, as we close out too, just a little bit of housekeeping. I know this is technically episode 3, but episode 2, I literally just rendered it. I was going through and I thought I had it set, and I apparently put the wrong settings, and so it didn't get audio, so had to re-render it. I'm going to try my best to force this out. We're recording this on Halloween. I guess it's technically the first now, but do my best to get both of these out this week, so then we can get back into episode 4, really try to push these and get some recordings done. It's just been nuts for both of us. I know I had some family emergency stuff going on. I know work's been nuts for you on your end, and oh man. So, just kind of that little housekeeping, so you guys know what's down the pipeline, what's coming, what we're hoping to get accomplished. Of course, the world gets crazy again. We'd love, if you guys loved this, to blow it up and make this our full-time job. That'd be great. I don't know about you, but that sounds fantastic.
I mean, it would be nice, I guess.
But no, as always, we're happy to have you here. We hope the glow of this lantern calls to you and creates a place where you feel like you have a spot and a voice to sit down, to listen, to talk through, comment, like, share all of the ideas that not only we have and that we're speaking on here, but anything that you have too to add in there. This lantern's here for you. You're always going to have a spot under the glow here at the lantern. Thank you guys for listening.